I think that's something too that people misunderstand, that, it could be like with me, it's a lot of high pitch voices. So with me, I struggle a lot of the time with women or children, just hearing a lot of the time it's not that I don't hear the whole word, I hear pieces. Yeah. And so my audiologist is always saying, you're putting puzzles together. You're just always so focused, and how that can be really exhausting, because I go through my whole day trying to piece together what people are saying to me. Yeah. And, and you don't think of it. You're just coping, right? You're just kind of adapting to your environment. But it's something that I'm more aware of when I talk about hearing loss, right?
I'm Belinda, and I'm with Hear Right Canada here in Okotoks. And thank you, Laurie, for joining me today. I know you're part of the Town of Okotoks Economic Development Team, but we're here today to talk about your personal hearing journey.
Thank you for having me.
So let's jump straight into it. How long have you had a hearing loss for?
I've had my hearing aids now around 5 years.
5 years. And what sent you in to get tested initially?
Yeah, so actually it started where I really started paying attention to it was during the pandemic. Everyone was wearing masks, and I was really having a hard time communicating with people.
Yeah, so you couldn't read lips. Right?
Correct.
Yeah, because I think our body, so adaptable, right? We adapt and do things, and our normal is our normal, right? If we don't realize we're missing something, we don't know.
Yeah. And another thing too is like people were telling me more and more as well that like even my manager at work was saying, I don't think you're hearing me right. And then, sometimes I feel like friends and family, you just kind of sometimes brush that aside and you don't, but when it starts showing up in your work and other, circumstances, then you think, okay, maybe there's something there.
Yeah. And you never struggled as a child during school or anything like that?
Yeah, not that I can remember, but I do know that I've been told that I've been doing a lot of coping skills, bringing that in. And it's like you said, a lot of the time you just adapt. And it wasn't something that I feel like back when I was raised, it wasn't something, when you had hearing infections and things like that, we didn't always go to the doctor promptly like we should. And it wasn't something that I say in school that I really noticed. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so since wearing the hearing aids, do you feel different? Do you feel you have any more confidence at work or anything like that?
Yeah. So in work, I feel like it has helped a lot. And if I'm without them, if I forget them, I go home to get them. Yeah. It was a little bit of a learning curve to get used to them. But they're very comfortable. They're very light. I don't have any issues around that, but it just is the improved quality of life, I feel. It just not feeling left out of conversations and things like that. I think it's just something that's really important.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And do you have any family members with a hearing loss?
Yeah, my dad actually, he has actually more severe hearing loss than I do, but it is someone I can talk to about it because we both have our personal journeys. We don't really know why I have hearing loss, but it's something that, that I deal with in my daily life.
Yeah. And just to make a comparison, if you don't mind, you wear glasses as well. How long have you been wearing glasses for?
Yeah, so I've been wearing glasses till my college years. And so, yeah, it's one of those things I feel like people pay a lot of attention to their eyes and getting, eye tests and things like that. But hearing sometimes, is one of those things that people don't think of to do their checks. Yeah.
Yeah, I almost feel like it's a forgotten sense, right? And like it's an invisible disability, so people forget about it. They don't pay attention to it. They don't realize how important and how impactful it can be if you're not treating it.
Yeah,
right?
Very much so. And I feel like, too, is so important because with glasses, they're very visual. When someone's wearing them. But, when I talk to people a lot, and if I mention that I have, a hearing loss, they're very surprised. Oh, I don't see you having them. They're very discreet.
Yeah. Very discreet. I think also that's sometimes part of the problem is there's a perception, right? Because I'm actually not aware of the type of hearing loss you have. I'm sort of guessing and, putting it together. But what I do know is that there are so many varieties of hearing loss, right? And there's one of the tests we do is how loud are sounds, how loud do they have to be for you to hear them? But there's also testing for speech understanding, making sure you can hear different consonants, making sure your auditory system can process that. And then, of course, taking it next further, how does your auditory system process speech within a noisy environment, right? So sometimes I think we know a person wears hearing aids and we assume they're bionic and they are fixing everything, right? And I think in your journey, do they fix everything?
No, and I think it's hard for especially family and friends think, oh, you got hearing aids, now you can hear. And, and so it's one of those things I'm like, it's not perfect. It's a tool is how I kind of see it is that, it's helpful. It can support, but there's still environments where I struggle. And then, I feel like sometimes those social cues, like I tend to sometimes talk over people, not realizing that they're still talking, right?
Because you missed it, right?
Yeah.
You didn't hear it or something. Yeah, yeah. Even with hearing aids, right? Even with the best quality hearing aids, sometimes you still miss something. Yeah. Very recently, I worked with someone, actually. She's still working. She's actually a new immigrant, and she's working retail in one of the local stores. And she was having a lot of difficulty with customers and with her management team, with them yelling at her, and she would leave in tears. Actually, they used some very cruel words like saying, "Are you stupid? Do you not understand us?" Which is obviously not acceptable in any way, but very much harder. So that led her to being, okay, maybe she needs her hearing checked, and she does have a significant hearing loss, and we're treating her with hearing aids now, which has made a huge difference. And also just making her management team aware, right? So they can help her when necessary. And so it's actually been quite life-changing for her. Have you had any difficult experiences in the workplace?
Yeah, so I think it's really, in my journey too, you have to be confident enough to actually tell people. Yeah. And so I've been pretty proactive now with my management, with coworkers, and then just to let them know. So, that, I may ask you to repeat something. I don't always hear correctly. And if I misinterpret something, just let me know. But, I think for a lot of people, it's one of the reasons why I think it's so important to have more awareness that people do have sometimes these, challenges that you're not aware of, right? And not be so, I find it so frustrating when you hear those stories like you spoke about, where people are so quick to judge, like you don't know, what they may be going through, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's life, right? We are very quick to judge, and I think we can all offer each other more kindness and compassion along the way. But I think just having that invisible disability just really highlights it to a lot of people. And I think it's tough.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different situations, especially in the work that I do. I'm in so many different types of environments. See, like it could be in meetings, it could be presenting to town council, it could be being at a community event, and every environment is a little bit different challenges. I feel technology in hearing aids and adapting them to the environment's helpful, but there's always those instances where you may have to have a conversation with somebody and say, hey, you know what? I'm not hearing you that clearly just because of the noise level or whatever. People sometimes, I find even at conferences, they like to come up to me and whisper and just, and I have to just tell them, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. We'll have to go outside of the room, right?
Yeah. And are you a person that likes all the extra technology? I mean, do you have your hearing aids connected to the phone? Do you play around with the app? And all that
yes. My partner calls me like the bionic woman because like you can answer the phone by just tapping your ear and things like that. So, but it has been a learning curve for sure. And I can see some people that it may be a little bit of a barrier because it just takes time, right, to learn your hearing aids and learn how it interacts with the phone. But I find it's really helpful.
I worked out in Cochrane at one point, and I was was fitting hearing aids on a retired family doctor. So this was about 10 years ago, and the lady at the time was in her mid-80s. So she'd been, a family doctor in rural Alberta for a long time. And so she had told me how one day she would have the blind school come in and they would all line up outside and sit. And obviously she would do their physicals, one by one. And the next day the deaf school would come in. I don't know if they were part of the same school or just different, classes. But what she said was when the blind kids were there, there was a lot of talking and a lot of laughter and a lot of joy and a lot of jostling amongst them, and when the deaf kids came in, it was just dead silence, right? And so she realized at that point the importance, right? And I think it goes back to Helen Keller. She very famously said, yes, when you lose your eyesight, you lose your connection to things, but when you lose your hearing, you lose your connection to people. And I've always remembered that, right? Is that it's definitely your connection. I think we all think eyesight is so important, and I'm not disagreeing. We need our eyesight as well. But I just think we've lost that. Hearing is your connection to your friends, to your family, to the outside world. And during COVID, it was really highlighted when people couldn't meet in person and had to talk over the phone. And it was incredibly difficult for some of them to meet together and have that conversation because they just couldn't hear.
Yeah, I agree with that, too. I think there's just so many misconceptions as well. Like, like a lot of people, I feel like with hearing loss, they think it's for the elderly. They don't think of it for, children. They don't think of it, say, for young adults or all through our ages, but it can affect any age, right? And so, and it's like what you're saying is a connection to people. And so if you're not hearing someone properly, you're losing that connection. Yeah. And you're not really receiving the intended message. And so, and how you then, react to what's being said may not be the most appropriate, right?
Right, yeah. It's maybe not said with the intention that you took it, right? Or like misreading an email, right? The same thing, like punctuation, all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was at a meeting the other night where I had to hold a mic as well. And I was thinking to myself how people in the audience can't lip read, right? They can't speech read if you're holding a mic in front of your mouth, so that you're trying to create this inclusive environment, but you're actually making it a little bit less inclusive by covering your mouth with speech. Like all these little things, right? They're happening every day, and we're just not thinking about it, right? We haven't adapted enough to be in that inclusive for hearing. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And, I think sometimes too, that another thing I find is that people think sign language is for here. You should talk about hearing like you're deaf. Like it is not something where people have all different levels of hearing loss, right? Yeah. And so I think that's something too that people misunderstand, that, it could be like with me, it's a lot of high pitch voices. So with me, I struggle a lot of the time with women or children, just hearing a lot of the time it's not that I don't hear the whole word, I hear pieces. Yeah. And so my audiologist is always saying, you're putting puzzles together. You're just always so focused, and how that can be really exhausting, because I go through my whole day trying to piece together what people are saying to me. Yeah. And, and you don't think of it. You're just coping, right? You're just kind of adapting to your environment. But it's something that I'm more aware of when I talk about hearing loss, right?
Yeah. I think, because it's been forgotten for so many years, like there's just starting to be a lot of research on it. Like they're talking about now the cognitive demand of listening and the cognitive demand of listening in noise, and exactly that. We always knew that untreated hearing loss people would be tired, right? Exactly, from having to focus so hard, where it should be a little bit easier to hear, right? And like you said, a lot of people with that high-frequency hearing loss, where you're not hearing specific consonants, but you're hearing the vowels of the word come through. So you're hearing something was said, right, but you're not necessarily hearing what was said. So you're having to piece together, right? Your brain's having to act quickly to piece it in together. And it's very, very tiring, right, to go through your day.
Yeah. And, I even think too, like, so when I watch TV, I always have the closed captions on. If I'm, in a Zoom meeting or something like that, I can have captions on, but in person, you can't have captions on, right? Mm-hmm. And so, those are the instances. And with me and my work too, it's really important because you're you're supporting people in their business, in my line of work, where you have to really understand what's being said. So, whether that's, you have my hearing aids, and then I also have a mic I use in some meetings. And then people are, because it has a physical piece, they're like, what is that? And, so then I'm talking about it more. And I find too, it's been a journey just to feel comfortable letting people know that, and knowing when is the other piece, right? When should I bring this up? And it's not like I bring it up in every situation, but if it's going to be a challenging situation where there's a lot of people around and I can really read the room and know okay, this might be a room where I'm going to have to mention it because it's hard to hear in, right?
Absolutely. And so if there's any listeners that are thinking that they may not hear well, like what was the first signs? What would you want to share with them as the things to look out for?
Yeah, so the signs, I was not hearing correctly. I was answering incorrectly. Okay. And so I was not getting the intended message. And, my family is going, what are you talking about? Right? And a lot of pardon, a lot of people asking people to repeat a lot of the time. And I think that's why friends and family bring it up first, because they're around you the most. And they do get frustrated too. I feel like my partner and, in my family, oh my goodness, like I'm repeating myself over and over again. But if they're in the room with me, it's fine. It's like if say they're in the kitchen or they're, in another room of the house and then trying to speak with you, that's when it oh my goodness, why can't you hear me? And so I think that's what really drove. It was just, but it was really work. It was like when it was so easy just to kind of disregard when it's friends and family, but when it's showing up with your work and people are mentioning it, then you need to look into it.
I think the research still says that it takes on average 7 years for a person to actually treat the hearing loss. Wow. So it's still a long time, right? It's really 7 years of difficulty, right? And a lot of sort of frustration and being extra tired, right, by not treating it. So it'd be nice to see a future where people are more, are able to embrace it, right? And know that there's help available and get treated sooner. They don't have to, wait or, I think we're really trying hard in the industry to break the stigmatism attached to hearing aids. Like you said, I think for a long time there was a lot of stigma attached to it. We really do have to break it because it can happen, at any age. Yep. And there's help available. That's the biggest thing. There's help available for people.
Yeah, and I hear a lot of people too that get them and then they don't wear them. So my dad was big for that. Like he got them, but he wouldn't wear them. And so I think where I was the opposite. I'm like, these are great. This just brings up so much clarity. But I think it's just really you have to, if you do get them, wear them, get comfortable with them, and everybody's different. Like sometimes, more people are more sensitive to wearing them. I think I'm not as sensitive as I might say my dad, but I think it's really important just the difference it makes, because I feel like with them on, that just brings more clarity, a lot more understanding, and you're able to communicate better.
Yeah, I think you just opened a can of worms there, because I do believe that not all hearing aids are equal and not all hearing clinics are equal, because you can have the same person with a very similar hearing loss buying the same product and have two very different success rates, right? And it's all based on how they work with a hearing care professional, like what best practices are followed, how it's explained on the adjustment. Like it's not if you just treat it like a commodity, the person's never going to have success with it, right? There's a lot more that's going into it. It's a very complex auditory system, a lot of adjusting. And in my personal experience, all the seniors that have had hearing loss for longer, it does take them longer to adjust because they've got used to such a quiet world, right? And they've been coping for so long. When you start reintroducing all this environmental noise to them, they don't like it, right? And they maybe don't even want to hear it, or you got to, reduce the volume a little bit and just explain that it's going to take time to get where somebody who's younger, maybe you haven't had a hearing loss for as long, or you know that it's going to take a bit of hard work to get there. There's all these different things happening. And so it's very key, I think, to personalize it to the person. And that's how you get success.
I agree, because it is, I do feel that way sometimes, is when I take them out, like, it's such a difference. Like, so I've always felt like it was kind of like, in my hearing loss, specifically, is muffled. So like when I put them in, it's more clear, right? Yeah. And so, so that encourages me to wear them, and it's very noticeable to me. But I could understand people that have gone a long time, and it can be very overstimulating, I think, and it is an adjustment, like you said.
Yeah, it is an adjustment. I think people just have to know going in, right? It's not a quick fix. Going back to glasses, it's not clear or blurry, right? It takes a lot longer to adjust to them and have them set correctly and optimized and all of that. But there are some great products out there, some great hearing clinics. So going back to, there is lots of help available, and just encouraging people, I think, to go out and get tested. I think people don't realize that hearing loss is not, like you said, it's not complete deafness. Right, there are different levels, and just because you can hear it, or you can hear in certain situations, doesn't mean that you don't have a treatable hearing loss, or that hidden loss hiding in the background there. Yeah,
I agree, and it's one of those things too that a lot of people, I feel like when they just pass it off and say, I don't know if that would actually help me. And, I think it takes a lot of courage just to go and get your hearing test, try them out, see how they fit. And, I'm sure there's, some financial barriers as well, to invest, but it's an investment in yourself.
Exactly. It's investment in yourself, and it's going to help you immensely. Yeah. Good. Well, thank you so much. I don't really have much more. You've been wonderful as a guest today, so thank you for joining me today. Is there anything else you wanted to share?
No, you know what? I think it's just, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me. And, in the community, I feel like, it's so supportive. And, I want people not to be afraid to speak up. Most people, in my experience, are very accommodating. If you let them know that you have a hearing disability, they're very kind. And so, don't be afraid to let people know.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you.